All right, my lovers. Hey there. If you're new to my channel, I'm MJ. I do apologize. The lighting is really bad. I stopped using lights some time ago because I don't know. I just did. And I also don't really do the live shares nearly as much anymore. I'm just trusting the good old intuition and doing lots of work behind the scenes. And of course, as the Ultra Love brand propagates, trying to look after the body and make conscious, loving choices. I, part of this channel was my being guided over a decade ago to share part of the healing journey with you. And the depth and expanse continues to blow my mind or like just astound me with regards to what's happening in us as a people and in the planet. So uh I've titled this video Cycles of War, Generational Trauma, and Global Healing. That there's this breakdown to breakthrough vibratory, not to uh, invalidate or dismiss anything at all, right? That happens to us as a being, as a people. And part of my own story or journey was quite early on, like over 20 years ago, having spontaneous spiritual awakenings where you could say the impact of the suffering that I witnessed in the world made me see through what I call a false economy and have a very profound desire to make a positive difference in the world. And all these years later, here we are with Ultra Love broadcasting on YouTube. And I think, like a lot of humans, it's that contrast of seeing things, witnessing things, and feeling completely powerless to it all. And then that powerlessness can often become like apathy. And things that I express here, I endeavor to listen, as in, I say this for myself. I'm only ever speaking from my personal experience and perspective. And I'm certainly speaking from a place of having oodles of love and compassion and a wish, a hope that we could be more joyful, more connected, and more living in harmony with the cycles of the planet. Yeah, this is our the body, our bodies. That's a home, and this collective planet, this shared planet, is a home too. And so there's, to me, absolute connectivity in how we're learning to look after ourselves, which to me has a lot to do with presence and our mind actually being connected to the heart. I had a spiritual teacher once say, a mind disconnected from the heart destroys its host. And, in trying to find simple ways of describing how this is all rolling out is that we've become insane, whether it's through power, whether it's through disconnection from our source, whether it's through generational trauma. We're in fear and we're disconnected from a knowing, an intrinsic knowing that peoples on this planet through the ages and through the times, part of the reason we call native people more aligned with the nature, the cycles of nature, is that they understood it, they felt it, they knew it. It's like the avatar. It's like those people. And the distortion is us trying to own and have power over, rather than being at one with all that we are. And that's why I talk about intuition is our body's infinite intelligence. Things like yoga, meditation are helping us to attune to that infinite intelligence. But we're finding those that it's not nice, it's not comfortable, it's filled with anxiety, depression, guilt, shame, emotions that are deeply uncomfortable, of course. And yet, in my experience, the only way through is in. the only way out is through. So we have to kind of burn through or penetrate or work through those emotional densities to, one, integrate them so that we've learned the lesson. As long as we keep skirting things under the rug, we'll continue to perpetuate the war cycles on the planet. We, as a species and a being, are all at once having to heal the generational trauma and empower ourselves to rise above the paradigm. And of course, waging more wars or blaming and attacking, pointing fingers, I don't really truly believe is actually going to rise us up. The more of us that can find love, peace, forgiveness. At the same time, that in no way is here to invalidate the suffering and the pain and the oppression that's going on. And I do feel, like somebody who always wants to speak for the oppressed. I do believe that we all deserve to be here. I do believe that we all deserve to have land and a home and access to clean water and good food. And the fact that we don't, or the fact that there are manipulative powers that seem to be trying to take and kill and, wipe out, rings things that I learned at uni all those years ago about what, colonialization did to, for example, the people native to Canada, and how, as a country, we're still trying to heal that wound. Maybe not as well as I feel like we could either. And I'm thinking about how in the UK, like, these different pockets of land are coming up. And I sometimes wonder, so who owns these lands? And how did these people come to them? When we look at our history, though, it's like, oh, they come through fear. So we understand that a lot of generational wealth came through fear and enslavement, war and oppression. Basically, who was ever willing to wield the sword and pillage and murder and kill and instill the fear through the ideation of dangling a carrot of reward. Whether it's spiritual reward, material reward, in a sense, it's all the same. It's still driven by an external projection that makes us think that we're better than, makes us think for some odd reason that we have dominion over. And that's the travesty of war, right? From a unity or from simply a loving, innocent perspective, the shock and horror and travesty of war is like a pure, like, what, why? From my perspective, though, of course, when you've been oppressed or when you've been starved or when you've been downtrodden, to me, on some levels, the why becomes obvious, because we're fighting for our freedom, because we're trying to make a stand, because we're trying to claim our right and deservingness to be here just like you, right? And supremacy and warmongering, to me, has always been absolutely base. And like, what are we doing? Part of the reason for well over 10 years, I've been asking people who are propagating, not watching the news or engaging. Because for one, majority of us can't do anything about the images we're seeing. And for two, those images do incite fear within us. And they do rally a divisive construct, potentially. So it's something to be aware of and discern within your own awareness, to disengage from some political rhetoric if it's just getting people frazzled, to disengage from certain conversations if it's just triggering people's pain body, as in triggering people's ego, triggering people's blame and attack, because people are identified, right? We this is why we get triggered. We're identified. It's like when if somebody were like, oh yeah, Molly's an angry yogi or whatever, I'd be like, oh, because I want to be seen as peace and love, right? We get triggered when something goes against our own personal narrative. So we're increasingly, I think, as almost like as a species, we're increasingly like almost like triggering ourselves and allowing things to break down, because so much of where we've been as a species, we're not going there. As in, we're having to evolve pretty massively, like on an I always looked at it as like an evolutionary leap, and I think these cycles happen. It's ongoing, right? When we look at a historical framework and we see these sort of shifts and morphs and leaps, and that's just every generation. Some writings would say every single generation has a shift, has a revolution. And so that's I think of the different generations that we've termed all making a claim, and yet to me the only thing that most of us, I'm born in the 80s, whatever that means generationally, and I just personally feel like the healing is all that, like, if you just prioritize healing, you will be saved or something, like you will be guided. And it's, again, I'm speaking from experience of like, I've been near homelessness, and I don't even want to go on about it because it's done, and I'm still standing and I'm still here to share. And I still truly believe if you open your heart and ask to be of service in like the highest potential, life will blow you away in the best way possibles. And it will also help you face and deal with your karma, right? Like that's the bullshit of life. Especially with the images, or the you create your reality, or like, oh, buy stuff and be special and have a status and be important and be pretty and where these things I'm speaking about, healing and integrity and dealing with our karma, none of it is like glamorous. None of it is worthy of selling, which is why I don't think it gets much press, right? It's not sensational. It's pure and it's innocent, right? And it is actually very truly genuinely powerful, but it's not manipulative. And so the people in power wouldn't want any of us to know these esoteric, deeper meanings of life. They wouldn't want us to access our power, because then, if you just think of it from the human ego perspective, to me, it makes sense and it's actually forgivable. We're all traumatized little kids that are looking for our power outside, and we become full-grown adults, which is almost like a dangerous game. And yet we have infinite, eternal lifespan within the cycles of the infinite, eternal universe. So it's like we don't have to get too heavy or hard on ourselves about it. And yet, when we're moving through these energies, it can feel heavy and hard. The amount of clients I've had who've come to me about like, oh, but MJ, when will it get better? And I'm like, I don't know. But when we think of why we end up coming to spirit, or why we end up coming to consciousness, it's because the three-dimensional old paradigm construct of separation and fear and division, that is more quickly destroying our body, right? And so I would say, yeah, the spiritual path, or this path of love, it is relentless, but this is the human experience. We're not here to bypass it. We are here to experience contrast and duality, and and the illusion of separation. We are here to experience that. And so there's a dynamism and value and validity in every single thing that we see, as painful and as kind of annoying as that might be to hold. It's all, everyone's allowed, but it's the power of our heart and the power of our vision for peace and harmony that can truly, to me, overcome the shackles and the shames of our historical past that we've repeatedly been telling. And it's not like I have any answers. I just like to noodle. I like to sort of philosophize and share perspectives about my own prayer, you could say. Like, a profound prayer that's been guiding me all along, that it just found the state of things so heartbreaking, and I didn't understand the imbalance. I didn't understand why some of us had all these things and why so many people had so little. It hurt. And so there's this quest of, can we do without? Can we do without some of the shopping? Could we do without with and I don't mean to like restrict ourselves. I mean, what is really valuable? You know, like I we are living in a material world, and I'm a material girl. I like, you know, material things, but I also lived a life where I did renounce materiality for a long time. And again, only through my own suffering did I think, no, I've got to permission myself to have things. And now I'm learning to have a closet full of clothes and things, and not, and if anything, moving toward, what's the word? Quality. I don't like having lots of stuff, but the few things I have, I want it to be quality, and I want to look after it. Like the possessions I own look after me. And so there's a reverence, not a denouncing, not a denial, right? Which sometimes I think a lot of the religious teachings would have us believe that we have to somehow renounce or denounce the material world, or that it's somehow shameful or wrong. But how could that be when we're here? So it's like it's like full on absorption of the totality of all that you are, full of heart, with this pure, fierce love that can burn through any shames or shadows, to keep regenerating us, to keep allowing us to show up in a creative, loving expression, so that we can break through. And I'm here for it. You know, I don't care how many more lifetimes it takes. I don't care you know, how many more painful emotional storms I need to process. I'm here for it, here for the evolution of our species, here for a greater pioneering of more harmonic systems that support a greater whole, rather than a very few number of people that somehow want to dictate and control in a pretty awfully tyrannical way, which is, to me, just, yeah, there was a time where it would have caused me a lot of pain and grief. Now it's like a kind of super duper loving, but also like angry parent. You know, you're looking at your children, just wondering why, you know, like you're here for more than that. And you still want to love people regardless of the wars or the rage or the whatever, and yet focusing on what we can do, focusing on, you know, as, and I don't know about you guys, but like I'll still think that's not enough. I don't know, like I'm like, oh my god, right? And then there's people doing this and there's people doing that, and yet, but then I think, well, what good does that do either? Putting myself down or making me feel like shit, because I don't know, when I do that, I end up becoming even more apathetic in my own life, right? So anywho, see, I can feel I think I've said some stuff. And mostly I do these shares to share and to maybe hopefully bring people a little bit of peace, or maybe a bit of clarity with regards to like being able to connect the dots of our consciousness, you know. Anywho, my loves, I'm gonna shoot skis. Thank you all for being my internet friends. Thank you. I'm thinking, oh gosh, I do really need to sort the light out. It's probably not very fun for you guys to barely see the person speaking, but anyway, there you go. Have a great day. Keep